Democratic leaders are responding soon to the report. We're going to come back to Edward later in the hour with all of that. Here now to react, though, is Jason Chaffetz, former Utah congressman and chairman of the House Oversight Committee. He's also a Fox News contributor. And we have Bill Hemmer here as well, co-host of America's Newsroom on Fox News Channel. Bill, I want to start with you because you've been burning up the phone lines while we were out here working on this story.
John Ratcliffe is on the House Judiciary Committee. He's going to be part of this group. By the way, you golf shamed me earlier today, so
Yes.
I went and bought a shirt.
Good for you.
Okay, hence the reason why
Yes.
I'm more casual and
Yes.
more fitting. Great to be back with you.
Yeah.
I think he made 6 points that I think the viewers need to understand. Number one, they used the word astonished and disappointing based on the report. That's how they're reacting. This is a former federal prosecutor, he along with Trey Gowdy. Number two, he wants the FBI director to hold a press conference, which could happen this afternoon, we expect. He wants to clear the name of 13,000 FBI agents and clean up the names of 15 to 20 what he considers bad ones. That's point number two.
Wow.
Point number three, the whole Peter Strzok matter, he was in charge of the Russia investigation starting in July of 2016, going for 1 year to July of 2017. He thinks that's way out of bounds based on the text messages we're seeing so far. Point number four, was there anything illegal, I wanted to know. And he said this is prosecutorial discretion, suggesting James Comey then has the decision to make a move or not. On Monday, you're going to get the IG hearing on the Senate side. On Tuesday, it'll be on the House side, and that's where you're going to see people like pressing on these questions that we're going through. And the sixth point here, it has to do with James Comey. What they want to know is whether or not he lied under oath. And the point they come back to is, in September of 2016, Ratcliffe asked Comey under oath, when did he conclude his decision on the Hillary Clinton matter? And he said after we interviewed her. The interview took place in early July of that year, and the IG report clearly shows the conclusion happened 2 months prior. So 6 points that Republicans are jumping on in this, 400-page report today.
Jason, of those, what sticks out at you?
I think it was a complete and total undressing of the integrity of James Comey. It's sad, really, that somebody who propped himself up as being, holier than thou really was not abiding by protocol. He deviated from that. I think those that are pro-Hillary Clinton have a lot to complain about. Those of us that wanted equal justice, a fair and unbiased approach, were totally let down. I think Peter Strzok, that to me, I'm not a prosecutor, but looking at it, I mean, how could that not be treasonous? You're not in charge of fish and wildlife. You're in charge of counterintelligence for the United States of America. You have a duly elected presidential nominee in Donald Trump, and you're going out and you're texting somebody you're having an affair with. You're texting her saying we're going to stop Donald Trump from becoming the president of the United States. He should be prosecuted.
So Democrats are already out saying that message is being taken out of context. It's actually about something else. And what the IG report shows is that the FBI was working in favor of the Trump administration or potential administration, the future campaign, and that all he did was hurt the Clintons. I mean, isn't that what we keep hearing, Bill? From the Democratic talking points.
Yeah, that seems to be a continued line. But I think where all this merges together, remember, this report only deals with Hillary Clinton's email matter and James Comey.
Right.
This deal is nothing. This is not Bob Mueller. It's not Russia. However, the connection they're drawing is this Strzok matter.
Right. That
he was in charge of the Russia matter for 1 year entirely. He was the lead dog on that until he was removed.
Jason, are they setting him up to be the scapegoat? Peter Strzok?
He set himself up. I mean, look, you got to also go back to the fact that Hillary Clinton's the one that set up this convenient email situation with herself. Buried in the report, we're still pouring through it, is this insistence by the Inspector General that there was a compromise of private email and that classified information did get in the hands of foreign nations. And that is devastating. It's classified information for a reason. People put their lives on the line and can lose their lives if this information gets out. But that's also buried in this report, and I think will come out in the coming days.
It is a good point. But, Bill, I'll take it back to the text. I mean, that's really the thing that comes out, and they talk about is the reason why the emails were slow-walked back into the investigation. Did that have to do with the fact that these two are saying back and forth to each other, we can't let President Trump.
I think it's a legitimate point. I can't answer it right now, but I think this is one of the many questions that will face Michael Horowitz early of next week.
Yeah.
I mean, based on what we're learning right now, Melissa, this is going to be mandatory television watching come Monday and Tuesday. The Republicans are clearly going to have their line of questioning that we've just detailed based on these conversations with Ratcliffe and others. And the Democrats are going to take it in another direction. And as Jason points out, you can figure out who to believe. But there is enough in here to tick off the Hillary Clinton people. And there's plenty in here to tick off the White House right now.
Jason, respond to that talking point that now I've heard 3 or 4 times in the past hour with Democrats saying, you know, this just proves that the FBI basically was helping President Trump.
Well, I do think Hillary Clinton was dealt with improperly in this situation. I do think that they deviated from their norm, from their protocol, and she suffered some of those consequences. I still think Donald Trump would have become the president of the United States. I don't think it affected the ultimate outcome of the election, but they've got a lot to point at and be highly critical of James Comey and the FBI because they did not deal with it properly as it relates to her. But
their
remember,
point is that Comey was out making the point that he had the investigation into her, and he said nothing about the fact that they were investigating the Trump campaign for collusion and Russia and everything else. That's their talking point.
And Republicans believe that that was not a serious investigation, that as you look at the emails and text messages, Peter Strzok's email, that was not just one text message that went awry that really illuminated their feelings, not only, I think, a bias, but an animus. Yeah. They had a relationship, but there are thousands of texts that are similar in its nature and approach that make you just question the highest echelon of the FBI.
I'll give you one more. What Republicans are going to say is that the FBI director has to fire Strzok, and if he still has a job by this weekend, they're going to go off on Monday.
All right. All right, we got to go. Thank you so much, Jason. Bill, I know we had just heard Dustin Johnson. I think they were screaming behind us. Everybody's following Tiger.
It's a
you got to get back out there. Got to get back out there.
Struggle's real.
Yes. All right, my friend. Thank you.